Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Transformation. Today we have a wonderful guest. Chen Lizra is here. Did I say that right? Chen?
Yeah, you did really great.
That was the most like rolling or something that I could do. But she is here and she is going to be talking about somatic intelligence and this art of femininity, which I know I can learn a lot about and relearn perhaps how to tap into that feminine energy and so much more. We're going to have a great conversation here and I'm excited to have her here. Chen, welcome to the Leaders of Transformation.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
It's a pleasure. And for our listeners out there, I am really excited that you're here as well. And this podcast wouldn't exist without you. And so all the show notes will be on Leaders of Transformation afterwards. And I assure you, this is going to be a great experience here. Whether you're a man watching or listening or a woman, I know there's going to be great value here. So stay tuned for the whole show. Now, let me give you a little bit of background on our guest. She is a TED speaker, an award-winning social entrepreneur, somatic intelligence life coach, best-selling author, and professional dancer. Maybe we'll get a little bit of dancing in there, chair dancing. Chen helps people come back to their true nature. She specializes in transforming people's lives by changing behavioral patterns for the better through bodywork and experiencing. She offers somatic intelligence workshops, one-on-one coaching sessions, training programs, and keynote speeches using the unique one-of-a-kind method that she's developed, the 5 elements of somatic intelligence. She works with individuals, organizations, and events in order to cause deep transformation. And that's what we're here for, right? Is as leaders of transformation, we want to learn how to transform ourselves. It starts with us, and then, of course, transforming the world around us. So before I even go any further, we want to give a shout out to Alejandra Castellanos. She is the lady that actually introduced me to Chen. I met her through someone else. I love how this works with connecting with amazing people, and then they connect me to somebody else who connects me to somebody else, and here we are. So thank you to Alejandra for that. Very grateful. So coming back to, I just gave him a little bit of a bio on you, but Chen, give us a more of a deeper understanding of what is it that you're passionate, what is this transformation that you're creating for others?
Well, I work with basically bringing people, embodying our true essence, and I work through the body, through experiencing. So, there are a lot of different methods out there, and people work a lot of times through the head. And what we notice more and more is that people are in their heads, but they're not feeling enough. They're not connected enough. And we need a balance between head and feeling. So there are certain elements in our lives that got shut down. Like imagine almost like a little dial that got turned off, and then we feel like something's off. We feel like something's not fully there the way it should be. And the trick is to understand what is missing and then to dial it back up. And then we feel like there's vitality, there's energy, there's confidence. What was missing suddenly comes back. So I work with people through the body to get them to experience these things. So just to give you an example, if somebody walked into my studio right now and got coached, and that person said, I'm not feeling very confident and I would want to feel more confident. And let's say I asked that person, I said, between 0 and 10, give me your level of confidence right now. And let's say they came in a bad day. Normally, they would say between 0 and 4 if they're in a bad day. If I talk to them about confidence, explain to them, how they need to behave and what they need to let go of, they can understand the thought process, but from there to applying it to their lives is far sometimes, right? We're in a place where we feel suddenly 4 or even 0 that day, and we go like, I get it, but I don't know how to get there. If I get them through the body into a body position that's a power pose, that changes the chemistry in the body. And within 2 minutes, they would feel more powerful. Normally, if I do that kind of work, over 10, 15 minutes with them, and I'll ask them again, how's your confidence now? It will go up between 6 and 8.
That's interesting that you say that about the dial, because I actually remember dialing it from one end to the other. I mean, I started off being very, very direct, very driven when I was in my teens, and then I realized that that wasn't acceptable, and so I would dial it back this way. Another dial was when I realized that I needed to be more masculine in the work in the business world, and I noticed myself dialing, and then wondering, how do I dial it back now?
Okay, so
yes.
let me break it down to what you did. All right. So this is the model.
Yes.
And the model has basically 5 elements. So we've got elegance, not in the sense of what we're wearing, in the sense of who we are, the possession of ourselves, that classiness, that quietness of being ourselves. Intention is that force, that drive, that what you're talking about when we get intentional, achieving goals, doing things. Meaning is right here. Tempo is connected to our enjoyment. The Sarasota is linked to the sense of love and softness and compassion and containing others. And then we've got the mystery, which is all about the playfulness. So when you're saying that you were very intentional and almost like using male kind of energy, it wasn't, the intention was where it was. What you really dialed down was the element of love, softness, and that, right? When you get, so you're not really dialing up and down the intention. The intention stays really strong. What you're doing is you're dialing down the part that counterbalances it, the one that keeps us intact, so we're not aggressive, for example.
Got it. So explain. Well, we'll go into more of that detail in a moment. How did you actually get to this point where you learned this? I know there's some background to what caused you to experience this for yourself.
I used to have, first of all, I used to have a dance academy in Vancouver for 10 years. And I started going to Cuba to train in dance because I wanted to bring something very authentic and true to the source, and not just go like, hey, I'm great at this or that, but I've never gone to really learn from where it came from. And when I arrived in Cuba, originally, I got over 10 years, I got over a trauma that I suffered because my mom got mentally sick, and I crashed, and I suffered 10 years of suicidal thoughts. So it took 10 years to kind of pull it together and put all the pieces back together. And when I felt cognitively okay, that was around the time that I went to Cuba. I didn't go because of that. I went because something drew me. And what was really interesting is that looking back, we can understand in hindsight, right? Like what happened, my somatic body was still hurt. Like I felt like there was a part of me that didn't heal, and it wasn't in the cognitive aspect. The cognitive was fine. I was fine. But there was a part of the body that held pain. And I didn't know how to release the pain from the body, even though I was okay. And I think that when I got to Cuba, first of all, something kind of like the magic there, the energy, the people, the love you feel on the streets, like you actually feel love between people. And where do you go in the world where you feel love between people? Maybe in a village in Africa. But it was so beautiful. It was the way people are, the connection, the solidarity. There was something so special about Cuba that and I've been halfway through the world, and I haven't run into it anywhere else in the world. And I was like, okay, there's something here. And I started, and I was drawn to it. I was just, every time I would come back, my heart would fill up with so much joy of life and happiness. And I was like, what is it here? Is it that I'm on vacation? But another year goes by and another month goes by, and you're here 2 months and it doesn't fade away. And you go, no, there's something here. So I started investigating deeper into what it is. And it took me 13 years to crack the DNA of this thing, because Cubans themselves cannot explain to you what it is. It's ingrained in them. It's like they grew up with this. It's common sense. It's what it is, You ask them questions they don't know how to explain to you. When you ask the right questions, their answer is usually, claro, of course. You go, but it's not clear. You don't get it. It's not. We are from a different planet, us outside of Cuba. And eventually I figured out what it was. Cuba got locked up years ago, almost like, stuck in time, in a time warp 60 years ago. And because of that, something got conserved that disappeared from the world. These things that I'm talking about, I didn't invent them. we all used to have them in this world in past generations. When we think of let's say, you know, the grandmas and the grandpas, or even one generation before, there was something so classy about how they held the body, right? We can imagine them
Yes.
walking around very elegant, you know, speaking and talking like this. That was that elegance.
Yes.
That elegance, for example, gives us sturdiness, emotional sturdiness. If I hold my body now like this, the way they did, now I start to feel like I'm protected.
Right.
Emotionally protected. Like I've
Yeah.
got that thing. And if I go into meetings, for example, and I'm nervous, it was a big meeting or whatever it is, I'll use the proper technique that gives me that same sturdiness, and it will calm me down. It's not that I'm not burning inside with like excitement or whatever it is that I'm feeling, but in that moment, I can control that situation and go in a complete different way and shift what goes on rather than getting sucked into those feelings. Right?
Got it.
So what I found was that there are certain elements that we lost over time because of the lifestyle that we're living today. We're running too fast. We've got so much pressure on us. We're doing too much. Most people, their body language now is like this, right? They'll sit now and they'll be like this, and they're working like this, right?
Instead even like hunched over and
and this, and instead of being here. So that impacts the emotional. So this is why it's somatic intelligence, because it's emotional intelligence that comes through the body. The way we hold the body, the way we move every day releases or doesn't release dopamine and endorphin in the body. And in the past, that used to happen naturally.
Interesting. So somatic then, so when you define somatic, you said it's the emotional being experienced through the body. Is that how you would define
somatic comes from the word soma. Soma is the body. So somatic means through the body. When I say somatic intelligence, it's like saying emotional intelligence, but through the body.
Got it. I got it. So now there are 5, you mentioned 5 different areas on this wheel. Maybe what we'll do, elements. So maybe what we'll do is have a visual and make sure it's in the show notes so people can have a closer look at that. What are the 5 again?
So we've got, all right. So this is how it works. We've got the elegance, which is connected to our confidence.
Okay.
And we've got the intention, which is connected to our meaning and also drive. We've got the tempo, which is linked to our enjoyment. And we've got the sabrosura, which is linked to love, and the mystery to playfulness. When you see that flow is our true essence, true nature. And
now, is this just for females, or is this also for men? Is this so
both male and female, it's the same. And you see how there's a plus and a minus with the dial here that we can dial up and down.
Okay.
So how much of each depends on these 3 things. So it depends on the life stage. So it's what point is it meeting me? In my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s? Am I going through a crisis? Am I opening up? Am I in love? Where is it meeting me? Because if I'm in love, sabrosura is like flowing naturally.
That's that glow that you have.
Yeah, exactly, right? But if it's like, if I'm in a crisis right now, there's a good chance that all of my elements are turned down. Cultural identity. I'm, for example, Canadian, Israeli, or Israeli Canadian. And I lived in Cuba and Australia and Japan and Canada and Israel. Right. So that gives me a cultural identity. If I'm meeting the mystery after being in Cuba so much, no big deal. But maybe for somebody, for example, British, coming into meeting this element, that element is going to be a little overwhelming with our cultural identity. Right. It depends on what context we come from. Now, we can also, and I'll touch this one in a second, we can also look at cultures with this. So if you look at this, for example, if we look at the US right now, the US is really strong on intention, super intention. But the elements that got hurt are the elegance, right? There's that sense of losing of values.
Right.
And the sabrosura, the softness, the not being so edgy with what we're doing, so aggressive. That means that sabrosura is getting damaged. So we know that these are dialed down in the culture, and in the past they were higher, which is why this worked better in the past in the United States right now. So we can look at that as well. You mentioned Alejandra before. We did this we looked at Alejandra's and then her husband's, and then we looked at both of their parents, And what was really interesting, because they've got like a soulmate connection. And what was really interesting is that the two elements that connect them are the exact same elements that connect each of their parents.
Oh, wow.
So it was like, wow, isn't that interesting? And so the last one is the self-identity. And the self-identity is your personality. Am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? Am I shy? Am I outspoken? What values I grew up with at home, right? If someone grew up Catholic, it's very different than if someone is like a hippie, right? How much love I got at home also affects this. So this is the background that dictates for each person how much, because it's to us, it's not a generic thing, it's to us. My plus of, maybe for me, my personality has tons of mystery and yours has a little bit of mystery. It's not right or wrong. It's just, are you at your maximum?
Okay.
And if you're not at your maximum, then I need to optimize the elements that are too low and bring them up. What I do when I work with one-on-one clients, I do an assessment of somatic intelligence, and then I see what elements are missing, and then I start to crank up the elements that are missing for their personality. And when I do that, this flow starts to work better. And this is where we see dare to be you. You start to be more you. But this is where you have a deeper connection with other people. And that's where the magic happens.
Got it. Well, I love what you just said there about it's what's maximum for you, because rather than everybody thinking that they need to be the same and, oh, she's this way, so I need to be this way. It's like we were talking about the other day about Brazilian women coming to the US, and they bring that mystery and all that, right? And so, it's not necessarily that I'm going to be that, but it's the maximum for me. So how did you even figure out what the balance is in all the different, like, because I know you said you do an assessment. How do you even figure that out for people?
Well, what I do is I have a questionnaire that I do with them, and it's a pretty deep questionnaire, like a coaching questionnaire. And I get the full picture, and I do it usually with them. I don't send it to them to fill, because I need to be in the conversation with them to understand and dig deeper with them. Right. And then I see a lot of connections, because I understand really well human processes, because I went through my human processes for so many years to try and put myself back together. And I used so many methodologies to fix me that I got really good at understanding how we work internally. So I get this a lot when I'm meeting psychologists, and I work with them, or I describe to them something, and they go like, "You sound like a therapist." I'm like, "I'm not." Because of the terminology, because I go so into the human processes. So what I do is when I sit with the client and I do an assessment, we'll feel a pretty deep questionnaire with, things that go into the past and what happened and what matters to them and what they want to achieve. And we go deep. But when I'm looking at it, I'm also looking at it from a somatic aspect. So I'm looking to see when something that they're describing doesn't work, which element that is, and what is missing. And I can get a sense. I don't put percentages on that, but I look to see, by the end of it, I know which ones of their elements are really strong and which ones of the elements are missing, because in what they're going to talk, you're going to see, okay, here this is missing, here this is missing. What element is that? Oh, this is enjoyment, and this is elegance, for example. So it's like I write for myself what those elements are, what they're missing, and I write also what is really strong for them for what they're talking about. When they talk about their values, when they talk about, for example, when they're at their best, like adjectives that describe them. So, and then I do an analysis of that, and I create a report for them, and I write for them the strong elements, the weak elements, and then the insights that came up. So that kind of creates a blueprint, because they get a picture of where they are today, and then they understand why we need to do what we do. Then I get them into the studio, and I tell them, let me show you what I can do with that. So when I'm inside the studio with them, I'll say, okay, so how, for example, in the report, there was like the assessment, there was this and that. So we're going to start working on this element, because I think this is really important for you right now. And then we start bringing that element out. Now, there's a lot of dancing in the moment. I have so many tools. Sometimes I'll start somewhere, but I'll notice that something goes on with them, and then we need to go somewhere else, because every body has entrances, emotional entrances. And if we want to go into the body in a sense of an emotional experience where the body doesn't resist.
So give us an example. Yeah.
So let me think of an example. So, for example, someone who came and let's say a guy who, let's take guy, okay? But because we don't want to neglect the guys. So there was a guy really high up with his profession and what he's doing who came to work with me. He was managing the whole company and he was struggling with managing people, his leadership style. And he came and he said, I want to work on my leadership style. I feel like I'm not doing it right and I'm not getting the results I want.
Okay.
When I met him, first off, his being, there was something that put me off about him. Like as soon as I met him. And when I say that, I don't mean that in a personal way. I was like, oh, interesting what he's causing me to feel, because this is what I do. I don't take this personally and I don't like him. I'm like, interesting that this is what I'm already getting from him. And it was because it felt almost like the way he behaved, he was patronizing or behaving in a way that felt kind of a little cocky, right?
Right.
Then we did the assessment and we looked at the elements, and then I took him into the studio. And when we talked and when he explained to me where he's coming from and who he is, and I kind of really understood how his personality works. And then we got into the studio, and one of the first things that I did with him is I started teaching him how to request rather than push people into what he wants. So what I did was I did an exercise with him where he gives me his hand and I give mine. And so he's got one hand, his right hand on my back, and his left hand right here. And I give my hand and I say, okay, ask me to go there through the body. And he pushes me. And I go, okay, let me show you what you did just now. And we changed roles. And I put my hand on his back and I asked for his hand and I started pushing him. He goes like, you're pushing me. I said, this is exactly what you just did. I said, and then we switched again. And I said, leave me there. Don't push me. So we go to the same situation. He starts pulling me. So
very interesting.
We switch again, and I go and I pull him. He said, "You're pulling me." I said, "That's what you just did." And I said, "Okay." We switched again. Leave me. Don't push and don't pull. And he just stood there, didn't do anything. Said, "I don't know what to do." And I said, "Let me show you." And we switched again, and I just requested. So I gave him a little feeling like, I want this, like this is what I'm asking you to do, but I gave him the choice. I said, and then I asked him, I said, how does that feel? He said, like you're requesting right now. And he's so smart because he runs our whole company. He was like, oh my God, so I do it here, I do it there, da, 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 da. Next week, it was already different.
Wow.
He was applying this so quickly. So through the body, I can take something, and it was interesting because as we started peeling off those things that he does as a defense, what we started talking about it, and he said, what is stuck for me is that I want them to get going because we need to get things done. I said, right. But you're not requesting, you're pushing them. And what did you feel in the body when I pushed you? He said, resistance. I said, right. So then he started becoming more empathetic. And with
that's very interesting. Yeah.
And with that empathy, he started managing in a different way and started applying it right away. And it's interesting because within a couple of weeks, he became really likable.
Interesting. Very interesting about most of the leadership training is intellectual. It's skill based, and you say this and then they say that, and this is how you lead people through your words, and yes, through your actions. But what you're talking about is actually through your body and the body language, which is our communication. That falls in line with 55% of our communication is our body language, 38% is our tonality, 7% are our words. And
what is even more interesting, which is why somatic work is so impactful, when we hear something, we don't get it the same way as when we feel it through the body.
Yes.
But if I say to you now, look, falling in love and you've never felt in love is this and this and this and this, you go like, okay, sounds really nice. But one time falling in love, you go like, oh my God. As soon as something goes through the body as a feeling, we get it. We understand. We say to a child, don't touch the fire, it's going to burn. Don't touch it again. They're like, ouch. Okay, they're not going to touch it anymore.
Right.
But we said it 5 times, they didn't get it.
Right.
When we
Very
feel,
interesting.
we get it. This is why
Mm.
somatic work is so powerful.
Hmm. So how did you attract somebody that he came to you because he knew about somatic intelligence? Uh, how did
Word of
you
mouth,
attract? Yeah.
someone
Okay.
someone connected to him did work with me that was really powerful. And then
Mm.
when he was going through whatever was challenging for him and he was talking to that person, then that person said, you should go and see her because she does this kind of work and it's really powerful. And then he came.
So now, did you create this yourself, or you adapted it? So this somatic intelligence, is this yours, or is
No, that's
this?
mine. I created it.
Okay.
It's just I worked with these things for so long through the
Yeah.
body, and then people wanted to learn certain things from me. And before I was teaching a lot of these things through a really long process of many years of learning how to dance. And then some people don't want to learn how to dance.
Hmm.
They just want to get the transformation really quickly. So it took me 5 years to develop this
Hmm.
somatic method where I was like, okay, how am I going to teach this in a week, let's say, where people get it? Or an
Right.
hour, get this, how do I get to the essence of the lesson rather than having to work through a long, long process of years before we get there? Like, how do I get to it took 5 years, and it's not just my mind. I took, branding strategists, and I took amazing minds to help me crack this and understand the DNA of this thing to really, and it's really about observing people because this process is in humans. We took it out of humans.
Mm. So who do you focus on in terms of your clientele? What, who would you
Well,
like? Who do you? I mean, you could work with anybody, I'm sure, could benefit from this. But who is it that you are looking to work with? That transformation that you're creating. Who are you?
really
Drawing toward.
change agents and people who feel like they want to be to impact their communities, because
Mm.
I'm really interested in the ripple effect. So when I'm doing, for example, programs, I have different retreats, and every retreat is about one specific element that's the main element, and the other elements come and support it. So the power of the Sabrosura in Cuba is for women to reclaim their femininity and come back to that place where we're women, but not instead of giving
Yeah.
up our power, but to be in my full power, but not be full power aggressive, full power and soft. It's one of the
Mm.
hardest places for women to be. And it's like when you come to this place where you're really being in your true feminine essence, every breath that you take, every interaction that you have comes from a different place. And it's just it feels amazing. It feels different. It feels like you're not working so hard. It's almost like you took a vacation,
That would
which
be
is really
great. That'd be
yeah,
great. Taking vacation every day is just
right
being
here.
yes, yes, right
Because
here, right now.
you stop working so hard. It's something that doesn't sit right on you, It's like putting a dress
Mm.
on and you go like, this doesn't feel like me. And you're
Yes.
walking around in it and you're uncomfortable. When you take an energy that's not your own on yourself, this is how you
Mm.
feel. You feel off.
Yeah, talk about that for a moment. The impact, of not feeling, or like you said, being wearing something or taking on an energy that is not your own. What do you see as the impact out there? And I know you're in Israel right now, but you do a lot of traveling. You're
Mhm.
Canadian, just like me. Woohoo! Oh, yay for the Canadians.
Maple
Um,
Leaf. Woo-hoo.
yeah, and so yeah, the Maple Leafs. Lord help them. It's
Where did
only
we
been
go?
51 years now. Come on. Win that thing. But no, so yeah, what is the impact that you see as you travel? You mentioned about Cuba. They have this already. They've never lost it. In North America, we've lost a lot of that, and there's a lot of striving. And I feel that even myself over the years. I could talk about having taken on that masculine energy and now realizing the impact of that. Sure, it helped me to be successful, and I have high intention. One of the ones you were talking about there. Um, but I lost some of those other pieces. Some of those other ones have been dialed down because of that. So now, as I'm looking to balance them out more, so that I can, because it is tiring after a while, striving
Yeah.
all the time, pushing, 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 pushing. Um, and so, yeah, talk a little bit about what you see and the impact of that, and
Well, one, like you say, women get tired.
yeah.
They feel off. There are
Hmm.
women that even get to the point where they are so masculine in their attitude and with the male energy that they have a problem having a relationship because men don't want to be with a man unless they're gay.
Right.
They want to be
Right.
with a woman. They want to be with that softness. They want to be with that femininity. So if
Right.
you're stuck on that energy, it's kind of hard to connect, and find that the yin and the yang. And I think that you see a lot of women, I see this a lot in workshops that I do, that women are afraid to show vulnerability. So like I'll take them into, let's say, an exercise where I'm teaching them how to move heads really with softness, with sabrosura, and they'll feel so exposed because now it's like, I have to show that femininity, and they feel like, oh my God, it's like there's no protection. Where's the hard shell? And it's interesting because that's just us being women. And it became so foreign that a woman gets scared. And then I have to teach them what I showed you about the elegance and that sturdiness, because when I'm here and I've got my full power, then I can be vulnerable because I'm not giving it. It's not the same as being here and I'm all exposed. But here, I hold my power, and at the same time, I can be very feminine.
So I see this for women leaders, as they are. I've recently been interviewing a lot of leadership coaches that focus on women in leadership, encouraging women to be more courageous and to step into that leadership role. And yet there's this, one of the books actually, Dr. Sean Andrews sent me, which was Power of Perception. And talking about the perception of women in leadership roles, and the way men operate and the way women operate differently based on socialization and so forth. And so here these women are showing up, and it actually just reminds me of a book years and years ago. I forget the title, something about what men don't tell women about business or something like that. And that when a woman is trying to be a man, now the man doesn't know what to do with that. And yet at the same time, if she's over here, he may not take her seriously. So can you speak to that?
Well, there are a couple of things that you brought up here. First of all, we have
he may want to take her on a date. Like when I was growing up and starting in business, it's like, oh, sweetheart, that's so cute. Let me take you on a date. So they may lean more that way as opposed to treating her like an equal in business.
Let's start with the fact that we're not where those years were. And women nowadays, I mean, look at Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman.
Yes,
she's super
fabulous.
Powerful. She's very feminine.
Yes.
It just, in the past, it was a different world. And nowadays, women can be super strong and very feminine. When women started fighting for equality, there was that look, men looked at femininity as a weakness. And some men still do, but bottom line, the world is not what it used to be. Women can be like feminine and strong leaders at the same time. But sometimes they get stuck on roles. Shout out to Andrea Pennington, which you have to have in your show. Incredible woman that I'm working with. And she's leading a movement for self-love. And we just had this conversation because she used to be on Oprah, and she's a doctor, and she had this persona on the outside, but inside she was falling apart, and she had to keep playing the role as she felt that she needed to, But bottom line, there was an inauthenticity, and eventually she broke that wall and came out. And this is what she does now. Teaches also about, one of the wonderful things that she does is teach about self-love. And what does that tell us? It tells us that we get stuck on kind of an image, a role that we're playing that's not who we really are. And when you do that, you're robbing yourself of your life. And at the bottom of all of this, you only have one life. Everybody dies at the end. Make it count. Don't waste it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. By the way, I keep muting myself. Sorry, because there's the painters and their machinery making all these noises, and oh my gosh, but that's life. It's just the way it is. But this is really, really interesting. Obviously, an area that I'm curious about as I'm looking to dial up some of those areas in my life. And you're right about the vulnerability, is that when you women don't want to be vulnerable because they want to be strong, and they want to feel like I'm in control and I'm not vulnerable or weak, that that I won't be taken seriously. But
who said,
but a gal.
And I say, what if I'm not willing to give up my femininity for anybody? Then where does that leave us? It leaves us with standing our ground on where the line should be drawn.
Right. And I love, we were just actually watching Wonder Woman and what was it, Justice League, and some recently, and watching Gal Gadot within those films and saying, oh my gosh, like she is all of that.
Exactly.
And it's awesome. I mean, there's nobody that would challenge her because they realized how strong she was.
And this is exactly the model for future leadership, is that the old model is not the right model. It what worked at the time for that time. But nowadays we can see the price that women paid for that, and it doesn't work. So it's time for a change, and we're getting role models and examples of how that can be done. So now the time is to learn how to get your full power, and then also have that femininity, which is why I created that retreat in Havana.
Yes. Well, and before we talk about that, actually, what's interesting is you said it's what women are missing out on. And I think the men are missing out on that because they're not getting the opportunity. Because if women are trying to be men or trying to be that, staunch, right, stiff. And I know for myself, I felt that at one point. It's almost like I'm feeling stiff, not even flexible. But then the men miss out on that as well, because that they appreciate it and it gives them freedom. So it goes both ways. I think that's where, it's when we are being who we are created to be, then everybody benefits from that.
Right. And both sides are out of their true essence, which is why I'm doing this work. So when you talk about women,
men are confused. Yeah.
Men are confused, and men are not just confused. There's, what's the name of that actor? Justin, I hope I'm not saying his name wrong. I think Baldoni, I think his last name is. Okay. He's an actor. He did a show just now called We Are Men Enough. And he took some of very strong male leads in different sports and in actors and so on. And he did almost like a kitchen talk where they sit and they talk about masculinity, about why men don't show vulnerability, about the problem that they have with their bodies and body image. A lot of the issues no one ever speaks about, including on how men assume what masculinity is and what are they trying to live up to. And he's breaking those rules to create a new model for men to find masculinity, where he even cries. And he's very masculine. But what is really interesting, which is why I'm creating, another program called The Power of Elegance for Men, is that there is a loss of being a gentleman.
Yes.
When we look at things like the Me Too movement, where's the problem? The problem is that we are out of balance. A man cannot take something forcefully from a woman. If a man is a gentleman, he will not take something forcefully.
Right.
But if a man lost that gentleness that we had of being a gentleman, of respecting a woman, of understanding that it's a request, that even if she teased them or whatnot, like, he cannot take it away. What was teasing and flirting in the past? Now that everybody's so afraid of sexual energy, what was that? It was a no that means a maybe. And a no that means a maybe means I look at you and I flirt and I make you feel like I'm interested, and then I take it away so that you'll come after me. Yes. What happened is that we stopped also showing. We don't show anymore because there's no vulnerability. If there's no vulnerability, so what is left? It's left with, I don't show you anything, and I play hard to get, and no one knows what is going on and if she's interested or not, and should I act and should I not? And then men sometimes take forcefully. It's all out of whack. Yes. When we want to attract, I want to show you what is great about me. I want to show you what is that you'd want it. Then I'm going to say no out of showing it. But I have to know also that it's a safe space for me to play. Yes. Not out of playing a bad game, but our intention should be pure. I always say, how do we know that it's a pure intention? If we're here to better off the person. This is one of the things I love about you guys. When I have connections, I feel that they're bettering me off. They're giving me their energy, whether they got something or not.
Right.
That intention, there's never a robbing of the situation, because no one's taking anything from anyone. People are giving and we're sharing, and maybe something will evolve as well. But if it will evolve, even if the person said no, it will evolve out of charm.
Yes. It's like sharing a smile. It doesn't, nobody loses anything and everybody benefits, and you walk away and you
So
know, yeah, I love that.
what I described to you just now is true nature. This is what I'm
Yes.
working on showing people, how to get to that place where we act out of the right place. And it cannot work just on the women or just on the men. This is why I'm creating different programs that work on different elements. There's the power of enjoyment. We'll learn how to tap into the body, release dopamine and endorphin, create a natural high, develop super positivity, where we see all the benefits of
Right.
everything positive that happens to us, even when it's a disaster. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you lose your arm, you have a crazy, someone died, doesn't matter what. There's an opportunity for an incredible quantum leap in your life in that moment. Did you ask
Mm.
for it? No. What you do with it counts.
Yes.
You know? And
Yes,
that,
absolutely.
right. So each one of them works on something, and all the five elements give us the true essence. And this is the point, to bring us back to where we used to be. This used to be natural. We used to know
Yeah.
these things, and we
Yeah.
lost them, and life feels wrong. Life feels off.
Yes. Well, actually, we need to learn. A lot of times, what we need to learn is how to unlearn the things so that we can go back to, like what you're talking about, this true nature of who we really are. Now, you mentioned about Havana. You're doing workshops there. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about that.
So specifically in Havana, I'm doing right now a retreat for women. And what I love about this retreat is that I select 20 women that I feel are ready for the process, because you have to come ready to want to make that change. And then we take them on a week of somatic work in Cuba, 20 women, 10 instructors, so that when you're doing movements, they go around and they correct you. So we
Wow.
really get the fine details of this. And we experienced Cuba, which by itself is incredible. You know, it's a dream come true for a lot of people. And we integrated into the streets, so that and I'm basically picking places to do the retreats based on what I want them to learn. So whatever culture embodies that element, we go
Mm-hmm.
there. So the power of enjoyment, we're doing it in Marrakesh in Morocco. Why? Because talk about enjoyment, Marrakesh. Woo! I just came
Nice.
back.
Yes.
Enjoyment is dripping from everything that they do. They go with the tea and they pour it again into and again the tea, you know, enjoyment. So
Uh,
Sabosoa is the perfect place to learn it is in Cuba, because you feel it in people. You feel it in the interaction between men and women. It's what I described before. It's still very soft and very respectful, and it's not pushy and aggressive. And you walk in the streets and men look at you in a sexy way and tell you beautiful things about you, and it's not sexual harassment. It feels nice. It feels
mm,
like a boost to your ego. And when you learn how to receive it without having to do anything about it, you learn about your power, how to hold your power, say thank you, let it in, let your heart fill with something great, and continue. Right? So it's a great place to learn certain things like those skills that we lost by being in an environment that has it on the street. So we do things in the studio and then we do things on the street. It's incredible. It enhances the learning.
so, what's an example of maybe somebody who's gone to one of your workshops and how they've been able to apply that in their leadership role? I know you give an example, or I love examples, stories
Well,
of
let's
what is.
take it
Yes.
actually. We talked a little bit about leadership before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's where it impacts you in your leadership, and then
Sure.
where it impacts you in your relationships.
Okay.
So, you know, in relationships, I have different clients where you see, for example, that they weren't in a relationship and something opened up about them, and they're now in loving relationships. And they always come back and they say, this also really helped me, and my partner loves it. Always. It's one of those things because it becomes so feminine, it's easier to tap, but they also are more accurate inside in their decisions, and they're more powerful. So when they come into it, they're not, okay, I'll do this just to please somebody. They're stronger, but in a feminine way, and that really helps the relationships. When we're talking about leadership, for example, leadership, it goes in two directions: either going for what you want, being intentional in what you want. So I've got a
Mm-hmm.
client, for example, who um, wanted to go international, and now she's trying to break into the market internationally, which is really nice to see. And
Mm-hmm.
she's becoming stronger and stronger, and daring and believing in herself, and the goals are becoming bigger, and she's doing better. And also, I think that for women, when you come and you learn all this knowledge, women's edge in business is their communication skills and
Mm-hmm.
collaboration and the feminine qualities which men and women have, right?
Right.
So when they really tap into their power, they don't lose the intention, but they suddenly learn better how to move with situations, how to diffuse, for
Mm.
example, situation. When you're coming with male energy into a situation, someone goes like, well, what about this? You might go like, no, that's wrong. And you're trying to break the situation, right? Because you're
Right. It's
trying to hit it hard,
competing. Mm-hmm.
right? Head to head. But when you're coming with feminine energy, then it's almost like you're using feminine wisdom, as moms used to call it, at least in Israel, is that you kind of look at the situation and go like, well, you know what? If we did this, this would do that, and you're suddenly finding a way to sometimes even caress that ego. Even in Israel, they used to teach when we were kids. I don't know if they still do that. To sometimes show the guy the answer and let him claim it. So like,
Mm.
be more busy with getting to where you want to get rather than being the one right who led there. And then
Mm-hmm.
women would sometimes find a way to kind of show the guy like what they thought would work in that situation. And he'd think about it and start claiming it. And then he'd go like, well, I thought about this and this. And the woman would sit there, the women would sit and smile, go like, good. Because to resolve the situation, it's not important who resolved it. They were able to give him that knowledge to soften the guy, to take it to where it needed to go. So it didn't really matter to them.
That
And
reminds me of that quote where it said the man is the head, the woman is the neck that turns the head. Maybe that's where that came from. Oh,
maybe
honey,
I
that's such a great idea. You know,
But the thing is,
that's
I'm
awesome.
not saying that women have
Yeah.
to play small.
No.
Women can be leaders and they can be the one claiming credit. It's not to in any way to
Right.
discard women in their role. But I'm just saying sometimes women, when they're in their feminine energy, find ways to move the situation in a much wiser way because of their emotional intelligence. It's known that women are very strong with emotional intelligence. They have a very high emotional intelligence. So they
Right.
read situations really well. When they're very in tune with their femininity, you're able to take that and say, I'll do this, and I'll lead it to where we need to go rather than hitting it hard. I find personally that one of the things that I love about learning the Subtle Soul and really embodying it. And I mean, if you saw me maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was super afraid of showing vulnerability. I
Mm.
was like, I remember a guy that was interested in me and I was so into him and I couldn't show it. And after about a
Right.
month, he dumped me because he was like, well, I don't think you're that into it. And I was dying inside and I still couldn't show what I
Mm.
wanted to show because I was so afraid of getting hurt and, everything that happened. And it took a lot of time to like peel those layers off and get to where I am today. And I love that about the Sablo Sua is that, it's like when I'm inside it, I come from a different place and I feel like some things just melt into where I need them to be. And I'm able to be, for example, in situations and be very strong about what I want. But at the same time, look at that person and say, I love you, I appreciate you, and really mean that and give them that
Mm-hmm.
so that they understand that I'm not just saying something harsh, but I'm saying something that I'm very assertive about, but it comes with love because I do
Yes.
appreciate them. I just don't agree with something. And that ability that we have as women to come into that situation with that love and being very strong, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time softens them.
Yes.
And that's the equilibrium that we lost a little bit, right? Like that was what women used to do so well that they kind of lost. Men lost something too. Like I said before, we need both
Mm-hmm.
parts. But I think it's one of those things that I love, and I go, wow, I'm really appreciative of the process that I've gone through, that I've created for these retreats, to be able
Yes.
to see women step up like that and now claim their life in a whole other way.
Mm. I
And
love
imagine
it. Yeah.
what places that would impact, from your
Oh,
relationship to everywhere, right?
yeah, absolutely. I can think of like your health, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're out of alignment with who you are, how that would impact your health. Certainly, yes, your relationships, your leadership, even your ability to like you mentioned about earlier, the confidence to know that you can create the life you want. I have on my phone, dare to live the life that you dream of. It's
Yeah.
like, we all have that life that we want to live fully alive and free and whatever that looks like for each of us. But in order to do that, we need to live and step into that true nature of who we are. who
right?
we are, not who anybody
You're
else
not,
says we
you're
are
not
or
who
should be.
you are. How are you going to create that truth?
Right. Right. And then you're out of so it's a different way of looking at being in integrity and because you're aligning with yourself, you're congruent with yourself, whatever the words they all apply, is to being congruent with who you really are. So I absolutely love that. I mean, I love having people play to their strengths, and playing to their strengths is not just doing the doing piece of, of what you can do well, but it's who you are being. Actually, it's far more than what you do. And so I love this. So
Yeah,
where do we find out? Yes, go ahead.
even when I'm looking at your energy right now,
Mm-hmm.
because of the conversation that we're having and what we're opening up
And
and
you're making me more conscious of it rather than
you're more, no, seriously, you're more feminine right now,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
beautiful, right? It's like I look at this and I go like, wow, you even look prettier.
Oh, thank you.
And it's not
Can
like you
use
weren't
that.
pretty before. No, seriously, it's not that you weren't pretty before, but it's like when we as women become
Yeah,
softer, we exude something that makes us more approachable. It
yeah.
makes us also more beautiful. Everybody, also men, when they are more attractive and more handsome when they're in their true nature.
Yes, absolutely. Well, so your website is it is powerofsomaticintelligence.com. So that's where people go. Your retreat, we'll make sure all these links are in the show notes for everyone. I just want to give a shout out for those that are listening on iTunes or one of the audio platforms. FeminineTrueNature.com is your retreat. Now, you said you have 20 spots available. Your next one is in July.
Yes.
Of course, this will be out for it's evergreen, these podcasts. So each year you have them, but this is July 2018 is your next one. And
We have
then you
one
have
in July and one in December.
and one in December.
And we have the Power of Enjoyment in Marrakesh in March, in a year from now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And people have
Morocco
started
would be
registering
beautiful.
to all of them. So we can,
Okay.
in all honesty, I think one of the most exciting things for me as someone who created these retreats is meeting the people that are coming to them. Because
Mm,
every time that I have a conversation with someone who's coming, it draws that kind of person that wants to better themselves.
yes.
And it's amazing to see who comes through the door. I'm blown away by the kind of quality of people that are coming, and I'm so excited for
Mm-hmm.
them to come together because it feels like it's a tribe that's growing and it's going to get bigger and bigger as we do more and more retreats, which
Mm-hmm.
is amazing, incredible.
Yes.
Seriously, I'm so blessed to meet such incredible people because of this project.
Yes. Well, and you're creating a huge ripple, and you talked about ripple effects. I love that visual of ripple effects. Every time we drop a stone in the water, there's a ripple effect. And I imagine it's actually something called precession, where you imagine all the people, 7 billion people on the planet are all dropping their stone in the water all the time, constantly. We're making ripple effects out. And so where the transformation occurs is when you drop a different stone and saying, consider this, it impacts everybody, even those that haven't met you. And so you are creating that ripple effect in a tremendous way. And yeah, you're right. I can feel it, even just as we're talking about it, becoming more conscious of it, is to just relax. It's that, because I got the drive down pat. It's
Yeah,
bringing back in that flow, and so that I can have the
it's
balance of the
exactly
two.
that.
So yeah, I appreciate.
Like
Yeah.
sabrosura is flow. Sabrosura
Yes.
is flow. And notice the fact that as you're feeling more flow, your intention hasn't gone down in
Right.
reality. What
Yes.
happened is that you're
Just
not so
rebalance. Yeah.
stiff about it. And then there's more room to breathe. And it's like it's
Yes.
almost like putting a little bit of air in there
Mm-hmm.
so that you're enjoying yourself while you're doing all of this. Because if you're not enjoying yourself, then you're missing life as you're living it.
Yes. I think of practical things that people can do is even just like dancing. Sometimes I just need to get up and just move around and
Let me give
not
you
go to
a
the
simpler
going
one.
to the gym. What's that?
Let me give you a simpler one. One
Yes.
of the biggest thing for people these days is that almost everybody locks the jaw.
Mm,
And one of the things that I do when I teach, I keep repeating every couple of minutes, relax the jaw, relax
mm,
the jaw. And people are like, they're not used to and the
yeah.
tension that we're in.
Mm,
The other second thing that's really important that people don't notice is that as we get stressed, what do? we stop breathing, right? And we become stiff in the chest. And that stiffness in the chest, as soon as we relax that stiffness in the chest, there's more flow. And if I take my breathing and I use it, for example, and I take it out slow, I'm now calming my system at the same time, and bringing back softness. And then from there, we can start to do any kind of body work that relaxes us, whether it's movement and dancing or whatever it is. But it starts with the basics, relaxing the jaw and breathing, not being stiff in your chest.
Chen, I love this. This is so awesome. Thank you for sharing your passion, your heart, something that you've spent many, many years to hone in on, even just understanding for yourself. It's amazing, and that's a whole other topic. Diving into how our pain or the struggles in our life actually lead to these great, amazing opportunities. You wouldn't have most likely learned this if it hadn't been for where you found
what
yourself.
I'm teaching about the super positivity. That's exactly it, right? It's that we can take any lemon and not even turn it into a lemonade, turn it into a lemon factory.
Yes.
But we have to really reinvent ourselves, right?
Yes.
There are people that take a tragedy, like, okay, I suffered 10 years of suicidal thoughts and I was in a really bad place. And there are people that would have gone to drugs and gone downhill from there. Or we can take those situations and we can climb up. And it wasn't easy because something was broken. But, it took me 10 years to come out to where I was. And during those 10 years, things kept falling apart all the time. And it was really hard because I kept asking one of my friends, I said, am I ever going to make it? And I would cry and I would say, would I ever going to make it? Because it fell apart, and I would work on it and it fell apart again. And it was 10 years of this. But the fact that I didn't give up, because I made myself a promise. I said, I'm going to do this till I find a way out. That was my promise. Didn't matter how many years. And it took 10 years. I have a sick intention. Like, my perseverance is insane. Like, if I decide on something, just move out of the way. It's going to happen because I decided on it, right? But because I've done all this work, I don't have a sick intention that's aggressive. Right? It comes with that femininity. So I feel really blessed. I'm like, I wake up every morning and I teach this. We do this in every program. We do gratefulness. Gratefulness is about waking up every morning, and you start with a couple of minutes where you're saying thank you to different things in your life. So I start every morning with that intention in my life. And I say thank you to that person in my life that's helping me. And I say thank you to bad things that are happening, that are teaching me things. And I say thank you to all these things. And that's how I start my day every day.
It's a shift in perception. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for being here and sharing a little bit of your heart and expertise and your experience with us. And we'll make sure that we have all the show notes for our guest and the gift. Oh my gosh. Yes. Let's talk about that.
So basically I created a beautiful gift that gives 6 insights on how to embody your true essence. And I took from things that I've collected over the years, practical things that people can start using. And I set it up as a gift on the site, powersomaticintelligence.com/gift. And people can just register there and download it and start using it, and to see the impact of these things that we can do daily already without even a course yet, that can start to connect us more to who we are at the core.
Well, I'm going to be downloading that right away. So we're not waiting for this podcast to come out. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And you're so awesome. And I just love your energy that you bring. And
thank you for having me. And I hope as many people come and learn this stuff, because what I feel is I need to now give this knowledge to everyone. So we'd live better, and so that it doesn't disappear from this world. So we pass it on to next generations and bring it back. We're not going to change the life that we had. We're just going to add what is missing, that's going to boost it.
Right. So for those of you that are listening out there and you're saying, wow, this is interesting, something maybe you hadn't thought of, or maybe you forgot, And maybe now you're thinking back like I am to my mom, and my mom with that elegance that she has, and some of these things that have become a lost art that we can now bring back in and enhance our life. Then definitely go and find out more about what Chen is doing. We'll make sure all the links again are on leadersoftransformation.com, so you can get access to that. We'd love to hear how this is impacting you, and definitely check out the retreat that she's got coming up, and she's got ongoing retreats all the time, and so make sure that you check that out and explore it. Maybe take your mom, maybe take your friend, your sister, somebody with you, and experience it with a few of your girlfriends, and I know that it will have a huge impact. And I will be planning one of those trips as well, definitely going myself. So with that, take action. I always believe in taking action. That's where transformation happens, is when we apply what we learn. It's not just listening to podcasts or watching videos and saying, well, that was interesting. The power is in the application of it. So take something today and say, okay, I can do a little bit. Maybe it's relaxing the jaw, something as simple as that, or the breathing, or something that you can take and apply right now, right where you are, so that you can start to transform your own life, and then watch how that ripples out into the rest of your life. I encourage you to do that. Have a great day, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Leaders of Transformation real soon.